Hello students, Mr. Yun here. Today we're talking about the first empires of the ancient world. In the last lesson we talked about Sumeria and how the cities of Sumer formed. Conflicts weakened those Sumerian city-states, but as they faded, other empires rose. An empire is a single ruler or ruling body controlling multiple land areas or kingdoms. As history progresses, pretty much starting now, we'll see many empires forged by trade and conquest, and then easy come, easy go. Empires rise and fall, and that's pretty much the cycle we're going to go through. Not the Galactic Empire, historical empires. So the first empire was forged by a man named Sargon, which sounds like a pretty cool, like a Star Wars bad guy or something. Sargon was the king of Akkad in northern Mesopotamia. Sargon was an ambitious guy and took his armies south, conquering the remaining city-states of Sumeria. He went on to conquer all kinds of, pretty much all of Mesopotamia. His empire lasted only 200 years before being gobbled up by invaders. This is what you get when you Google pictures of Sargon, and he looks very regal, very commanding looking fellow with an impressive kingly beard, much like my own. See the crown? Alright, so west of Mesopotamia was a people called the Amorites. The Amorites conquered Mesopotamia around 1800, in the 1800s BC, and built their own cities. The grandest of these cities was Babylon. You may have heard of it. In 1792 BC, the king of Babylon, Hammurabi, took it upon himself to start conquering all the surrounding Amorite cities, forging his own empire stretching from the Persian Gulf all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. Hammurabi, however, is not remembered for his conquests. He is remembered for the Code of Hammurabi, aka Hammurabi's Code. It was the first sort of standardized, written down set of laws, and they really covered all aspects of life, including punishments that were considered strict by Sumerian standards. So his laws were very all-encompassing. It's actually where the phrase you may have heard of, the saying, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, that came from Hammurabi's Code. So like if you hurt someone and you took their eye, then your eye would be taken. So on and so forth. That's literal translation. Let's talk about the Assyrians. So 1,000 years after the empire of Hammurabi, there was the Assyrian Empire. Basically, that's the areas of what's now modern-day Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. Assyria had a powerful military that conquered most of the lands that would become their empire. So they pretty much took it all by force. Their army was 50,000 strong. They were a brutal and feared group of warriors, forcing tribute from conquered peoples, basically like, all right, we conquered you, now you have to pay us money every year. So yeah, they do look tough. Pretty cool armor. I like the helmets. Tough guys. Now the Assyrian king broke the empire, because it was so large, into provinces, so like sub-districts, and appointed officials to govern and collect taxes in his stead. He couldn't control it all himself, so he broke it down into subsectors, these provinces, and had people do the work for him. The roads were guarded and the laws were upheld. Although known for their fierce army, the Assyrians had their own system of writing as well as religion. They built temples to in their cities to their gods. Farming and trade were important parts of the empire. They basically traded for goods that they could not produce themselves. So take what you have a lot of, trade it for stuff you don't have a lot of. Makes sense. Good economic system. Let's talk about the Chaldeans. The Assyrians were pretty harsh. People living under Assyrian rule didn't really care for it. This resulted in rebellions. In 650 BC, fighting broke out in the Assyrian Empire on who would be the next king. So sort of an Assyrian civil war. During the ensuing ruckus, two kingdoms joined up together to rebel against the Assyrians. This was the Chaldeans and Medes. Together, they were able to defeat the Assyrian army and put an end to the Assyrian Empire. Infighting, destroy them, basically. The Chaldean Empire was formed, aka the New Babylonian Empire is what they were called. King Nebuchadnezzar of the Chaldeans rebuilt Babylon into the capital city. Its beauty has been renowned through the ages of history. It was a very beautiful city, done on purpose. Babylon was the home to what's called the Hanging Gardens, which is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, like your pyramids, your Hanging Gardens, things like that. The Hanging Gardens are fairly a famous relic from history that is long gone, but written about by people throughout history, most notably Herodotus, who was a famous Greek historian. Beautiful streets, temples, and gardens within the city of Babylon made for perhaps the most beautiful city in the world, but they were heavily taxed in order to pay for all this. But the kingdom thrived in general. Here's what they think the Hanging Gardens might have looked like. So caravans brought in goods from other lands. The Chaldeans brought a prosperity to the people that had not existed under the harsh Assyrian rule. So good for the economy, the Chaldeans. They also brought new knowledge to the world. Astronomers studied the stars, mapping their locations, and the Chaldeans were the first to use a 7-day week. They also created the sundial. Have you ever seen a sundial? They look like this. The shadow tells you what time it is. They're pretty cool. I want one for my yard. I want to put a sundial out there. After Nebuchadnezzar died, a series of weak leaders and poor crops left the Chaldeans weak. Persians basically rolled in and conquered them. Persians realized the accomplishments of the Chaldeans, however, like, hey, these guys are pretty smart. So they allowed them to keep their customs and culture. They didn't quash them. All right, hey, up next we have a little discussion. A forum, if you will. You are to answer these following questions. Which empire interested you most? Why did you find this empire the most interesting? And tell us one thing about this civilization that the book or lesson did not tell us. I made an example. So basically, we learned about a bunch of different empires today. Which one did you like best? Why? And tell us something new about them. If you do a quick Google search on any of these, all kinds of stuff will pop up. So here's my example. I'm choosing to write more about the Assyrians. I think they're the most interesting because I want to learn more about their sweet legendary army. I read on a history website that it's believed the Assyrian army was the first to have a uniform, like their armor was all the same. It wasn't a ragtag hosh-posh. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. Last year I did this assignment. A lot of people wrote about the Assyrians and their army. A lot of cool details in there. But anyone we talked about, you talk about Hammurabi, the Medes, the Amorites, Syrians, whoever. You could even anyone we talked about today. All right, now it's Thursday, so supplemental program today is current event. Current event. So pick any website, any reputable website article. Remember, 2 paragraphs. First one, summarize. Second one, tell me why it's important to you or relevant to you or what your opinion is, and be sure to give me the source. So for a lot of kids, it's a link. Most of you, it's a link. But if you pull it from a physical newspaper, just tell me the paper, the article name, and the date of the newspaper. All right, that's it. Everyone have a wonderful day.